Welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're diving into something that honestly is going to completely flip the script on a concept we all think we know inside out: bravery. We're looking at this deeply introspective poem called Courageous, and let me tell you, it offers a massive, absolute paradigm shift. When most of us think of courage, we picture what? A superhero, a warrior, someone just charging fearlessly into battle without even a second thought? But what if true bravery is actually incredibly vulnerable? What if it's way quieter, way harder, and involves a whole lot more fear than we've been led to believe? Over the next few minutes, we're going to walk through this incredible journey of totally redefining courage, straight from the words of this powerful text. Okay, let's dive into this because the poem starts exactly where our minds usually go right off the bat. The author writes, "I open the door and sit. I see myself taming a tiger." Wow. It's such a striking image, isn't it? Taming a tiger. That is the ultimate display of loud, fierce, traditional bravado. It's this total, instinctual image of dominance and being completely fearless. When you face the day, when you open that door, your very first thought might just be that you need to be this lion tamer figure, right? Just dominating your environment with sheer force and willpower. And then, the author immediately layers in a few more of these animal metaphors for how we navigate the physical and mental world. They write, "I see myself move like a monkey. I see myself think like a tortoise." So it's all about survival and adaptation, moving with that quick agility of a monkey to handle physical obstacles, and then thinking with the slow, deliberate protective shell of a tortoise to handle the mental ones. These are basically defense mechanisms. It's about navigating a chaotic world with strategy and heavy armor. But hold on, because the poem is setting us up for a major twist here. So we really have to ask ourselves, looking at these survival instincts and this whole image of taming a tiger, is this what courage really looks like? Is it really just about having a thick shell, being super agile to dodge trouble, and fiercely dominating the things that scare you? Or is that just a performance we put on? The author is practically begging us to challenge this preconception of bravery. Because, as you're about to see, the true definition of courage lies in the exact opposite direction. Section 1. The illusion of bravado. Moving away from the fierce and loud. Right away, the author pivots completely away from that tiger taming imagery. They just drop the loud, the fierce, the defensive posturing, and guide us towards something so much more intimate and quiet. The armor comes off, and the real exploration of the human heart actually begins. And this brilliantly illustrates the core thesis of the poem. The author explicitly states that courage is not a state, like it's not some permanent condition you just exist in. And it is not a trait either, meaning you aren't just born with it like you are with, say, brown eyes. Society absolutely loves to define bravery as this static, fearless trait, but the poem redefines it as an active choice made right in the face of terror. The text literally says, courage is to be afraid and do what is right. It requires the presence of fear. Without the trembling, without the fear, there simply is no courage. Which leads us to this incredibly, deeply personal revelation. My courage is not to share, it is to care most of all. The author is telling us that true bravery, it isn't a spectacle. It's not some performance put on for an audience, and it's definitely not something you just broadcast to the whole world. It's deeply, deeply internal. They actually go on to say that this internal appreciation and grace are not for sale and not to give away. It is this totally private reservoir of strength, and it is built entirely on the simple act of caring. Section 2. The shift to caring, from inward isolation to outward empathy. So how do we actually build that internal reservoir? Well, the author guides us through a fascinating internal realization. They show us that extreme self-focus, navigating the world solely to protect yourself, actually leads to absolute emptiness. We have to make a move from inward isolation to outward empathy. And the author literally walks us through this psychological progression step by step. Step 1, they write, I used to focus on my own focus. That's total introspection and self-obsession, right? Then, step 2, what's the result of that inward obsession? Well, they say, I tear myself apart and nothing. I searched deep and nothing. Looking only inward literally tore the author apart and just left a void. So they hit step 3. Just then, I trade it with appreciation. Now, this is a deliberate, courageous choice. When searching inward yields nothing but destruction, you have to intentionally trade that self-obsession for an appreciation of what surrounds you. And the result of making that trade is just beautiful. I found courage in seeing outside, a little bit closer to home. Looking outside oneself is where the true bravery is actually unlocked. By stepping out of their own head and all their own anxieties, The author notes that they finally found a place where they could see my reflection and ultimately offer a little bit of help to others. True courage, it turns out, is deeply intrinsically connected to empathy and community. Section 3. Vulnerability and accountability. The quiet strength of admitting fault. Now, what's really interesting about this concept is how it transitions us right into the absolute hardest part of caring. The poem consistently pairs immense, raw vulnerability with unshakable strength. It totally challenges the idea that being strong means never being wrong. In fact, it argues the exact opposite. The text defines courage through the lens of accountability. It means to care about my mistakes, and very explicitly, it is to say sorry when wrong. I really want you to reflect on that for a second. Think about the real, tangible courage it takes to look someone in the eye, admit you made a mistake, and genuinely apologize, rather than hiding it or just making up an excuse. Taming a tiger might look really cool, but admitting fault? That takes a quiet, profound kind of strength that honestly most people spend their entire lives avoiding. The poem then rapidly stacks these incredibly powerful, vulnerable actions to show us what true courage actually looks like in practice. It is to lose yourself and to stand tall. It is to have gratitude even when life does you wrong. It is having the bravery to cry my heart out. It is choosing to speak the language, even so trembling from within, making your voice heard even when your body is literally shaking with fear. And it is choosing to put sleep with one's instincts, meaning you actively quiet your baser, defensive, reactive instincts to choose a higher path. Together, all these actions build this overwhelming sense of true emotional resilience. Section 4. Seeing the wider context, staying grounded when wronged. Of course, actually maintaining this vulnerability and accountability is incredibly difficult, especially when the world around you is hostile. I mean, how do you stay open and empathetic when things are going terribly and your first instinct is to just put that tortoise shell right back on? Well, the author's answer is all about staying deeply connected to your environment. The poem says, true courage is found while grounded in soil and dirt. It is to see the environment, to feel the life context. It's about literally and metaphorically keeping your feet planted firmly on the ground. When you are rooted in the reality of the world, the soil and the dirt, you are way less likely to lose yourself to temporary anger or the chaotic winds of life. You just stay present. And this becomes absolutely vital when things go sideways. The author writes, when wronged in every single way, it is to see the wider context. Just imagine the supreme difficulty and bravery required here. When you are attacked, when your identity loses its way, the easy thing, the instinctual thing, is to lash out. But the courageous thing? That is to zoom out, to see the big picture, to understand that a single moment of being wronged doesn't define the entire landscape of your life. Section 5. The paradox of courage, holding all and nothing. Let's move on and see how this builds into the final and arguably most complex theme of the poem. This is where the author brings together totally contradictory ideas and shows how they actually have to exist side by side within a truly brave person. The poem states that courage is to have all and nothing. It's a beautiful paradox, really. You possess the immense richness of empathy, grace, and appreciation, which is everything. Yet you must be completely willing to let go of your ego, your self-obsession, and your need for control, which leaves you with nothing. And within that paradox, you have to possess the sheer grit to try hard and fail harder. Courage isn't about some guaranteed success. It's about the willingness to fail spectacularly simply because you dare to try something that mattered. So the crucial point is this final emotional climax of the source material. Despite the fear, despite the trembling from within, despite the tears, and despite failing harder, what is the ultimate purpose of this courage? Yet still protect and provide what destiny brings to one's arms. Courage is, ultimately, an act of fierce, vulnerable love. It is stepping up without the armor, without the bravado, to protect and care for the people, the moments, and the responsibilities that life places right in front of you. Which leaves us with this final thought to take away from this explainer. The author has systematically dismantled that whole tiger taming illusion and replaced it with a breathtakingly difficult, deeply empathetic definition of bravery. So the question for you is, when life does you wrong, when you are absolutely terrified, when your identity loses its way, will you hide behind loud bravado and self-obsession, or will you embrace the trembling, admit your mistakes, see the wider context, and actually have the quiet, profound courage to care? Thank you so much for exploring this remarkable text with me today. Keep learning, keep reflecting, and we'll see you in the next explainer.